Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado. Game 3 of the Cup Final tonight. Pierre, LeBrun will join us here in a few moments. On the Cup Final, insider trading. John Cooper will be the head coach of Canada moving forward. Alex Steen, your boy, the GM down in St. Louis in the future. That one caught some people off guard, that he's going to take over in a couple of years, and Doug Armstrong's the president of hockey ops, and Alex Steen will be running the show.
Wow, I was unaware of that. Steener.
Yes.
That's
Alex
the trade that just keeps on giving for the Leafs, isn't it? Like, not only did you trade the guy, he turned into an elite talent, and now he's going to be the general manager of the team. Yeah, like it's still
going. They had
going.
to get the right-handed shot in Lee Stempniak, though. Coco and Steener had to go get the right-handed shot.
Had to have Lee. You're right, though, Frankie. You know, some Leaf fans will tweet, man, he could have been our GM, right? Could have been our GM. Look at Hyman and Brown and now Steen. Leafs traded away their future GM. Yeah. Of course, can't get it right. Yeah. But that's kind of cool. So Pierre will join us here in a moment. And, this time yesterday we were talking with Dregs, and the Mitch Marner stuff came up, and that's gone viral, not surprisingly, and we're going to find out in a few weeks.
By the way, on the Mitch Marner thing, and we got Kevin coming up at 6:30. Mm-hmm. There was a night they were doing soccer down in Studio 9. He was sitting there with Mark Rowe. So I was up in the boardroom doing Sports Center. I go downstairs, I say hi to Mark Rowe, and Kevin wants to talk a little hockey. And he wanted to talk about Mitch Marner. And he couldn't understand, like, what was going on. Like, why do they want to move the guy? What's up with the contract? All this kind of stuff. So I think he's got an opinion on Mitch Marner if we want to go there with him.
I love it.
He was telling me some stuff. He goes, in soccer, we would pay him $2 million to just leave. Just here. And it doesn't really work that way. But
Frankie, I just want to clarify one thing.
Totally different scenario there in soccer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one other element to it is I've gotten some tweets saying you guys love like running guys out of town. We don't run anybody out of town.
No.
Okay? The team has some highly paid players, and it's not the players' fault, but it's like you either get it done or you don't. And if they win, we pump their tires. If they have it, no one's pumped tires more than Hayes and myself with these guys. We'll be your biggest fans. But if it doesn't work, we got to comment on it. We don't run people out of town. I need to clarify that. Yeah, like some of these people that are like, oh, good player, you're running them out of town. We don't run squat out of town. It's just, we don't do it.
That's silly. I mean, any commentary like that's just goofy. Everyone has a different opinion on how the team, should operate and be built, and that's ultimately what it is. Their opinions on what we've seen, the details that we have in front of us, their history. Mitch, Austin, Willie, these guys have been here a long time. They've been given ample opportunities, and they've supplied some incredible highlights. And they've been great players and great Leafs and good citizens. These are not guys that have ever made you feel embarrassed to be a Leaf fan or a Torontonian or anything like that. They've always gone about their business well. It's about elevating the next step, right, which I think is totally reasonable for any Leaf fan around the world to be greedy and say, I want what Florida is getting. Like, Florida went to a Cup Final like their second year in the league, and they're back-to-back. Tampa's been in the league for like 30 years. They've already won 3 Cups, and they've been to multiple Cup Finals. The Leafs have been around for 100 years. It's the greatest hockey market in the world. There is nothing wrong with any Leaf fan saying, I want that and I deserve that as a fan. And that's what is driving these conversations from our perspective, is how can they put together a team that is capable of doing that?
Yeah,
I don't see how it's going to work with all these guys making all this money. And the fact is, Austin's not going anywhere and Willie's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Correct.
Do the math.
And it's not necessarily about an individual player. It's a lot of times it's the money attached.
Exactly.
You see the depth with the Florida Panthers. Edmonton has improved their depth. Noodles last week talked about their lineup when Kenny Holland first got there. And they've improved their depth. And if you have a bunch of guys making that much money, it's impossible to have depth.
Mm-hmm. And guess what?
It's impossible.
Guess what? If Mitch Marner does move on from the Leafs at some point, whether it's this year or next year, he's going to be a great player on whatever team he goes to. And that team may have success. But objectively speaking, we have to talk about it. and it hasn't worked for the Leafs. So like you said, do the math, like where do you go from here? And it basically points to two things, if that.
Yep, exactly. That's ultimately what they're facing. And again, it is go time. As of Saturday night, it could be. Edmonton loses tonight. They're facing a sweep Saturday night. We could be sitting here in 56 hours from now. We're into offseason mode. Draft right around the corner, free agency right around the corner. And if heavy lifting is going to happen, you have to know where that money is, where it's allocated, and how much flexibility you have. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. I know you're all Cup Final. It's all about the Cup Final considering you're in Edmonton, but how much buzz is happening on the off days about what's going to take place around the league once we finally get through the Cup Final?
Yeah, absolutely, and which is why we did an insider trading yesterday from the Cup Final because it's starting to happen, and a lot of conversations at the scouting combine in Buffalo between agents and teams with teams leading up to what's around the corner for sure. And yeah, there's not a lot of time. In fact, the Oilers front office, as we speak, are having their pro meetings in the middle of these two games here this week because they have no other time. I mean, they can't wait till after the Cup Final. So, they're doing their pro meetings as far as analyzing the trade market, as analyzing what it might take to re-sign some of their guys, and analyzing potentially what's out there on July 1st. It's got to be strange to be doing while your team is heading into Game 3 of the Cup Final. But the Panthers did the same thing last week while Games 1 and 2 were being played, or I guess, while Games 1 and 2 were being played in South Florida. The Panthers had their pro meetings, and they talked about what they might be doing around July 1st and at the draft. So they had no choice, these two teams, because the final is so late in June.
Pierre, who is this the year of in free agency? I think last year, a lot of the bigger, kind of burlier defensemen, they got a few more dollars. They got a few more years of term. It felt like that player was at a premium last year. Who's going to be at the biggest premium this year as far as types of players go? Yeah,
well, I definitely think it's still the year of the defenseman because there's so many UFA defensemen compared to a normal year. This is the longest list I can remember in probably a decade of UFA defensemen being in the market at the same time. A lot of the top forwards got locked up over the last year, guys signing extensions. You still have Jake Gensel. The Hurricanes made him a pretty strong 8-year offer, and obviously he didn't sign it, and I think they're keeping the door open to Carolina. Jake Gensel's camp is, but all things being equal, I think Jake Gensel's going to headline the group of forwards on July 1st. But otherwise, there's a lot of D. I mean, and I'm, if you're trying to rebuild your blue line, I mean, right here in the Cup Final, Brandon Montour. I don't know if Florida can keep him. Not if, they do all they can to keep Sam Reinhart up front. I don't know how the cap money is going to work to try and keep both. I think one stays, one of them goes, and if Montour goes, that's probably a top 3 guy right there in the market. I mean, Carolina has both Brady Shea, who had 57 points this year, and Brett Pesce as pending UFAs. I think Pesce's definitely going to market. They're still trying on Shea, but the list goes on in terms of options on D, which, I know you guys obviously are very focused on the Leafs, so I can tell you the Leafs front office and their pro meetings have certainly gone over that UFA list as well, and not to mention a guy that Brad Treliving used to have in Chris Tanev. He'd be on the Leafs list as well if Tanev doesn't re-sign in Dallas here in the next couple of weeks.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider, you guys were talking about Nikolaj Ehlers as well as, maybe a possibility of, being available or something that Winnipeg might look at. He's a pretty good player too. Yeah,
and, that's the other whole, we talk about what our team's talking about right now. There are a lot of players around the league that have a year left on their deal. By the way, Mitch Marner has a year left on his deal. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Thank you.
But so does Ehlers, and the Jets are listening on him. They're also, they've told his camp that they haven't closed the door and trying to extend him a year out either. But, if that's confusing to anyone, it shouldn't be. What's happening right now is teams with those guys with a year left are making sure they understand the trade market while at the same time trying to figure out whether or not they can find a common ground on an extension. So both things are happening at the same time on a lot of these guys, but Ehlers is one of them. And, just so happens the Jets are one of the many teams that have phoned Carolina on Martin Nietzsche, who's RFA July 1st, and who wants to change the scenery out of Carolina. So, yeah, a lot of fascinating possibilities there right now.
Pierre, I'm not specifically blaming you alone, but in years past, you've promised that the draft would be bonkers with movement. And to be
and
quite...
it has been at times. Come on.
Pardon me?
And it has been busy at times. Come on. What do you want?
But you've used the word bonkers, like all kinds of things would be in play.
Yeah.
Might we actually see that this year?
So here's what I would say. I think that as a totality of an offseason, O-Dog, I do think it's going to be pretty dramatic. I don't know that it's all going to happen when we want it at the draft. I think that there are some things that are going to need to play out in July and August that won't necessarily happen right away for various reasons. So I think you can get news all summer long here. Reminiscent, I guess, of 2 years ago when the Matthew Tkachuk deal happened pretty late in the offseason, right? I think that I have a feeling with some of the conversations I'm hearing that not everything's going to be settled by the end of July 1st, that this might play out a bit on several fronts. But we'll see if I'm right.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider, and I guess Alex Steen will be right in the middle of this. Like, what do we make of this appointment as the future GM in St. Louis? But it's not going to start until, 2026?
What's he been doing up to this point, Hayes?
Well, he's been working in the Blues front office this whole time.
Okay.
And it is unique. You don't see an organization often announce these type of things 2 years out. But it is also the same team, the Blues. And I don't know if you guys remember this years ago when Ken Hitchcock was still head coach. They announced before the season 1 year that Mike Yeo would take over as coach a year later. They announced it a year out. And so Mike Yeo stayed on as, associate for a year to Hitchcock and then took over a year later. So I guess that's how they like to do things. But, not to get lost in what the news today is, Doug Armstrong, the current GM, also signed a new extension as president of hockey operations. So it's not like he's going anywhere. It's just that, he's got both titles right now and he's going to give up one in 2 years. So, president of hockey operations has very quietly under the radar become sort of the softer landing spot for a lot of hockey guys instead of the day-to-day grind of GM, if that makes any sense. I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Pierre, switching to the finals, it goes without saying it's a massive game for the Edmonton Oilers, and I think a lot of us expected the Oilers to find a little more offense, and some of that offense should have been on the power play. How do you feel like the series has been officiated? I know at the start of the series, maybe you or others may have felt there might be some pressure considering how good Edmonton's power play has been coming into it. You feel like the series has been officiated properly?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if you would have told the Edmonton Oilers coaching staff before the series started that through two games that they would have 7 power play opportunities, they would have probably been doing cartwheels because, there were some pretty dry nights in the Western Conference Final early on against Dallas in terms of opportunities. So I think they would have been all over that. And they'd be pretty surprised if you also told them that they'd be going 0-4 in those 7 power play opportunities because this is easily the most dangerous and lethal power play in the National Hockey League. And now what you have to ask yourself is you have to believe your eyes, and you look at the data too. But this isn't an 0-for-7 where it sucks the life out of you because nothing's happening. They have had looks, man. Like they had 5 high danger chances in Game 1. They had 3 goal posts in Game 2 in their power plays. So it's not like nothing's happening. It's just that it's still 0-4, and it's the Cup Final, and it's a results business. So I got to tell you, I'd be surprised if they didn't score a power play goal tonight. This is the most reliable part of their game, the Edmonton Oilers. Of all the things that they do, and yes, the PK has been unbelievable in these playoffs, but more so than their 5-on-5, more so than anything else, their power play has been their bread and butter, and I'd be pretty surprised if they get opportunities tonight if they don't connect finally.
Mon ami, do you think it was silly for Florida to come in yesterday? Like, if they're garbage, are we going to be saying? Are you going to be asking after the game? Do you think that was a factor, or are they just old school where they're like they'll play you on the street, they'll play you in the backyard, they'll just drop the puck and they'll be ready to rock?
Well, I tell you, there's definitely something about this Florida Panthers team. I was like, Tkachuk and Reinhart were hilarious this morning at their availability. They just, I think they feed off, maybe a lot of teams not liking them. I think there's a tremendous chemistry on that team. And you think about this team, like, they played round 2 in Boston. That was a wild series, right? All kinds of stuff happening. And then they played at MSG in the third round. Like, I know tonight's going to be absolutely electric here in this building. Probably maybe something that a lot of these players have never seen before in terms of the anthem in Edmonton and the atmosphere. But I don't think there's anything that can phase this Panthers team. Like, they are so locked in as far as being comfortable in any situation. And again, I wouldn't surprise me if the Oilers won tonight. But my point is, it's not because the Panthers are going to suddenly not deliver their A game. I think they thrive in this atmosphere, and you'll see that over the next couple of days here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And we talked about this earlier today, the ability to go to back-to-back Cup finals, where Edmonton could be facing that question in a couple of days. Can you get back if you spoil this opportunity? And especially if it's ugly, probably irrelevant of the way it breaks out or breaks down, but if it's ugly, if they get swept or you lose in 5, they're all going to come out and say the right things. Great experience, great season. We fell short, but we can learn from this and we're going to build upon it. It's incredibly difficult to do that. And I think it's probably even more difficult to do it if you don't have that, like, out-of-this-world stud goaltender. Like, Tampa went to 3 straight Cup finals. They had Vasilevsky in net. He never missed a game. Guy was a machine. Bob is a machine. I don't think Stuart Skinner is that guy. Like, I think Skinner's a good goalie, young goalie, still working it out. Yeah. That would scare me, Pierre. Like, it's almost as if, if you don't have that freak of nature that's going to drag you there himself in net, this could be a one-off. Who knows when you get back?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you. I mean, I agree that Bob's a machine and everything you said in the lead-up there, but we've seen the last few years that you can win a cup without having a top 5 guy. I mean, Aiden Hill won the cup to Vegas last year, and he was phenomenal, but then he wasn't even their playoff goalie this year. Darcy Kemper won a cup for Colorado 2 years ago. So I think it's always better if you can have that guy, and I think if Edmonton has that guy, maybe they're not down to nothing, although I don't really think a lot of it's on Skinner right now. It's really offensive struggles. But I understand what you're saying. I thought where you were going at first with your line of questioning is that, the Oilers, win or lose, are days away from some major, major decisions here. I mean, Ken Holland's contract expires at the end of this month, and it doesn't look like he'll be back as GM. They got to go to Leon Draisaitl in a hurry here, right around July 1st, and say, are you open to extending 1 year out? And if the answer is no, what does that mean for this offseason for the Edmonton Oilers? And it may not be no, by the way. But
what do you think he'll say, Pierre?
I think that, how this final, believe it or not, I'm serious when I say this, I think the way this final plays out could have a barometer on the answer to that question. Then I think, even if the answer is yes, let's talk, I think that the number potentially could be jarring. I mean, this guy has been on a bargain contract for a long time, and it's time for him. Like, for me, if I were them, I'd be putting out a $50 million a year number out there if they're talking extension. But here's the third option no one talks about, because I think everyone assumes that if Draisaitl says, I don't really want to talk extension right now.
Trade.
I don't know that it's 100% you trade him. Like, what if it's let's run this back, and if we lose him in a year for nothing, we lose him in a year for nothing. But what if you're the Oilers, you decide to take another stab at it with one more year of Draisaitl and McDavid? I don't know.
So how are you getting better in the summer, I guess? Like, what are you going to do this summer that makes you better than you were this year would be the question after.
Absolutely, and I think some of that is on the blue line. and some of that is in their bottom six depth up front. I mean, they still have tweaks here this lineup that they could make to make this team better. But my point is that it's really unbelievable. They're in the Cup final. Tonight's going to be special. And yet we're literally days away from some potentially momentous decisions here for this franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very significant. And I do think the way the final plays out likely will have an impact on how Draisaitl will answer that question. And I have no doubt that Edmonton will give him whatever he wants. The question is, does he want to stay there long term? We'll find that out. And, my point about the goaltender and having that freak of nature was about how tough it is to get there 2 years in a row, Pierre. Not the one-off. Of course there's one-offs. There's a lot of one-offs. You don't do that twice. The only that was obviously, look what happened this year. Look what Tampa did. It's tough, man. It's tough. And that's all I'm pointing to is if Edmonton can't get it done, then they get all these question marks. Man, there's no guarantees it's going to break your way next year or the year after that. And, this is it. McDavid got to get one. Got to get one, man.
And remember that McDavid himself and Leon Draisaitl himself, the two-headed superstar here, after they lost to Vegas last spring, they themselves, not the media here, they themselves brought up the fact that they felt this season, 23-24 season, was cup or bust for this version of this team. And that narrative has hung over this team all year. And in many ways, it's kind of, why would you want to bring that kind of extra pressure on yourself? But they did. And they got the team to the final. And I think the reason they spoke that way is for obvious reasons. Who knows what this team looks like in a month? So that's why there's so much writing, frankly, on the puck dropping in 2 hours here. Big time.
Ooh. Well, go enjoy that. It's going to be an electric atmosphere tonight. Play the 50-50 for us, and if you win, we'll take 10%, and we'll go from there.
I just want to let you guys know, too, James Duthie, way better behaved today. There have been no incidents in terms of...
Oh, how did you view the Farhan Lalji incident? Let's hear it.
I mean, it was like a moment in a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, Larry David, where I wanted to continue to chat to Farhan longer because I hadn't seen him in a long time. But James was ordering me into the elevator because we had to go to our gate. It was very awkward, I have to say. It was. I had a tough day dealing with it.
Yeah,
it was hard.
Just disappointing.
One quick follow-up on that, Pierre. I know you're running to the gate. Do you not have, a preferred boarding zone that you can just kind of stand in boarding zone 1? Don't you have that?
I don't know that's any of your business.
Well...
That's a good point.
That is big leaguing someone.
That's a rebuttal.
That is off the top turnbuckle and big leaguing someone.
Pierre. Yeah.
Well, we do fly a lot for our jobs, right? So.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. Pierre. Enjoy yourself tonight. Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys. See you later.
Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. Father's Day this Sunday, and Golf Town has everything a dad could want with the biggest and best assortment of brands and products. Listen to First Up and Overdrive tomorrow for your chance to win a $500 Golf Town gift card for your dad, or follow us on Instagram at TSN1050 for another chance to win. Check out Golf Town's Father's Day gift guide today. To find the perfect gift, visit golftown.com and start shopping now. Kevin Kilbane coming up on the Euro starting tomorrow. The Scots, they're probably after it right now, gearing up for the match tomorrow. Scotland, Germany kicking things off. Canada, Argentina a week tonight. Copa America. We'll look ahead to that with Kevin as well. And our best bets still to come. Brought to you by FanDuel. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Game 3 of the Cup Final tonight. And as we've been saying all afternoon, I think people in Edmonton jacked for the game tonight. Big party atmosphere, right? I think pretty nice weather out there Thursday night, Game 3 Cup Final. You can't ask for much bigger or better than that unless you're Scottish and it's Scotland, Germany tomorrow afternoon, right? Euro's starting. I love that Scotland's starting.
Where's it being played?
It's in Germany. That means there's going to be a lot of Scottish fans in Germany ready to rock and partay. And I don't like their chances tomorrow. They're a pretty big underdog, but they're back in the dance, and they kind of come and go. Scotland, sometimes they're in, sometimes they're out. They don't make the World Cup very often, but a lot of support.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Stevie
As an
Ehlers, he'll be
appy.
so jacked tomorrow.
Oh, he'll be on some kind of panel or something, won't he?
Yeah, he's on the panel, of course. Game's on TSN tomorrow. But if they
Jacked.
win, you talk about someone that is very objective. He talks about football. He loves
But if
it.
they win, he'll have pints on the panel.
I think he might on the panel. I think that should be allowed. I think he should have the William Wallace Scottish flag painted on his face, pints, full post game.
Yeah.
That should be allowed.
We'll ask Kev. Will Stevie hit it hard tomorrow night if the Scots take the Germans down?
I think we know the answer to that, don't we? We can just play the clip. Play the clip, JP. We know what's up with
a couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
That's just warming up too.
That's early in the
Oh,
tournament.
it's an appy.
That's
It's
an
an
appy.
He makes it sound so casual. It's that's just the lead up into the main event.
Do you guys
that we
remember
got
when you
going
were
on.
single and you were just about to get ready to go out? That's what Stevie Caldwell has.
Yeah.
5 or 6 beers and a couple of whiskeys.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly what
And
it
you
was.
make sure you start with the whiskeys too, just to get the engine running.
Yeah,
Get
just to
the
set the
engine
tone.
rocking.
Yep, little pace car action. 2-finger, little pace car action.
What was your pre-bar move, Hayes?
Me?
You seem like you just hammered 6 Coors Lights, had a shower, and went to the bar.
Yeah, that would be it. Beer showers were big. I remember how degenerate you would feel
You
if you had
did
a-
shower beers?
Sometimes shower beers were that was
Dude,
degeneracy.
I think shower beers are unacceptable. It's just come to light the last 5 years. I used to love a cold beer. I never had a cold beer in a shower.
totally
Not even at the
unnecessary.
rink? Not a rink shower beer?
No, dude. I had little spots around the locker room where me and some established gentlemen, we would sit down and have a beer after a game, like a training room or something. Not that that's any better than a shower, but a shower beer's the dumbest.
It's
just
so
get out
stupid.
of
It is so
it. Is
stupid.
a
It's a
woman
college
must find
move.
out about a man doing a shower beer and be like, you really need a beer in there.
It's
You
Get
want
totally
out
to
the
hear?
towel off.
You want to hear something that I got judged for big time? And I don't know if you experienced this during your playing days. If you're sitting around the dressing room and it's like you got to go into the shower, right? But you don't want to go alone. You start recruiting some of the boys. It's like, are we going to shower up? Who's going in? It's.
I was
I
on
don't
my
know.
own timeline.
You were doing your own thing. In terms
I'm
of
doing
getting
my
out of
own
there
thing in there.
and
Yeah.
making sure everyone's
It
working
just felt,
on the action.
It just felt like if the action, you needed to be around the action.
I hear you.
know?
So you're working
Yeah.
on plans post game. You don't miss anything, basically. is
There
what
were
you're saying.
yeah.
I hear you. I can't wait to see how it's going to play out tomorrow, though, man. I'm telling you, Scotland beats Germany. I can't even imagine Stephen Caldwell post game. I want to see it. I'm pulling for it. I'm rooting for it. Here's a man that can probably paint that picture for us. He's played internationally. He's one of the great players that this show's ever had, one of the great athletes we've ever had. We love it that he's back. Here's our TSN Soccer analyst ahead of the Euros tomorrow. Copa America right around the corner. There he is, Kevin Kilbane. How you doing, Kevin?
Good, I'm good, thanks, guys. You're just listening to you talking about Stevie there with his his pre-match routines. Is that
Yes.
What do you
Stevie's
think his
standard, yeah?
routines are, Kev? Tell us his routine. And if there's a
Well,
victory tomorrow, what will it be?
Pre-match, it might just be a couple. It might just be. What was you say? Five drinks or 5 pints and 3 whiskeys. Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, that's what he said, and that's probably what we would suggest too. Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Yeah, I think I went out with Stevie about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was with my wife in the city. It didn't end well. That's all I will say. Yeah, and I got the train in. And I think I did miss the first train back home that I was due to get. I think it was a 9 p.m. train back, and I ended up getting back into the house after staggering onto the train at probably 11 p.m. So that was kind of how it went with Stevie. Yeah.
Well, that's the way it should be. And I have Scottish background. I'm rooting for the Scots tomorrow. I don't love their chances, but they can pull that one off against the host country,
Yeah.
the Germans. I mean, that would be pretty electric way to start the tourney.
Yeah, I don't have too much hope for them as well. I'm rooting for them big time. I have to say that. They've, certainly with a number of the players, you could quite easily say they could get into Germany's squad. Maybe not the starting 11. Maybe 1 or 2 might. But they've got a really strong midfield, Scotland. I think you could quite easily say that they could put it up to Germany. It's just where the goals are going to come from, how they're going to create these chances. And that's the only worry. And do they stop Germany scoring? That's another worry as well. Defensively, are they going to be able to contain them? But there's a lot more optimism, I feel, coming into this tournament than there probably was 3 years ago for the last Euros. There's a bit of momentum building. I know they've not necessarily been the greatest to form in the friendlies, but if you look at the competitive games, Scotland are in the right place, I feel.
Kevin, I'm sure you know there's a large Italian contingent here in the greater Toronto area. So maybe from a selfish point of view, I need to ask, what do you make of this Italian team? And what does all the Italian community here in the GTA need to know about this team? And how optimistic would you be?
Italy have no chance. That's what I'll say straight off here there.
What a comment.
I love it.
From the top rope. From the top rope.
I don't see going into it 3 years ago. They wouldn't have had any real standout superstar within the side, but they had a really good team. That's the way that I felt. Certainly the 11. I felt probably prior to the tournament they didn't necessarily have the depth, but they proved everybody wrong, me included, with how they played. They got so much out of the select or the team. That certainly the 1 to 11, 1 to 14, I would say was probably the biggest strength with Italy. But they had Chiellini, they had Bonucci, they had Verratti, real top-class players, I would feel. They don't have that now. They don't have anyone that I can really put onto the real high pedestal that I'm thinking, who's going to be the standout player? Now, looking at Italy in major tournaments of the past, they are probably my second favourite team. I have to say that. I've loved the Italians since '86. I love seeing the standout star or the breakout star from the tournaments. They usually have one. If I'm going back to Scalacci, 90 and so forth, they usually have a standout star that really makes the breakthrough. And that could be the case. It could be Scamacca, maybe in this tournament, the striker from Atalanta, who's had a very good season. But his goal-scoring record at international level hasn't necessarily mirrored his form at club level. So there's one or two that I would look at. Barella in there from Euro 2020. They still got Jorginho. They still got Donnarumma, the PSG goalkeeper. But I just don't think they're anywhere near the top 8 teams, top 6 teams in this tournament. And that's my worry for Italy coming into it.
What I find interesting, you look to make a wager here. You jump on FanDuel, and the shortest odds are England. England's odds-on favorite to win this tournament. We know their history when it comes to the Euros, when it comes to, obviously, the World Cup. And they've been knocking on the door here for the last, I'd say 4, 6, 8 years, but they don't seem to be able to break through. Why might that be different this year?
I actually don't see it this year. I thought the chance was probably 3 years ago again. Of course, they went in front in that final against Italy and then just couldn't sustain it. I think the team's probably in a little bit of a different stage right now. I think they're probably building. They've introduced 1 or 2 youngsters over the last maybe couple of months. There'll be a few new faces that maybe some won't be familiar with, and that's maybe where you look at. They still got Jude Bellingham, they still got Harry Kane, they still got Phil Foden. Declan Rice has had a great season at Arsenal. Defensively, probably is a worry. That's what I would think. I don't think they've really got anyone that's fully established. John Stones, yes. Kyle Walker, yes. But outside that, maybe experience, I think they're still looking to 1 or 2 relatively inexperienced players that they're going to have to pick alongside those players. So that would be the worry if you're an England fan on how they're actually going to do in this tournament. I don't see it. I think they're coming in with a lot of negative press. They lost to Iceland in the last friendly, which was a terrible result from England's point of view. So if you're looking at England, certainly in isolation, I would say no. But England may have proved their own press wrong in maybe tournaments gone by and gone on a decent run. But I don't see anything for England beyond a quarter-final in this one.
We'll give Kevin Kilbane. We've got the Euros starting on TSN tomorrow. Germany, Scotland kicking that tournament off. So you're not sure about the Italians, not sure about the English. Who are you sure about? Who do you like this tournament?
There are a few teams. I like Portugal. I like Holland coming into the tournament, the Netherlands in this tournament. I really like Spain. I think Spain will take some beating in this tournament. And that's not just the form. If I'm going back to the previous tournament with Italy, I think Italy were on a run of around about 30 games unbeaten coming into it. And although we talk about friendlies and the friendly matches, and we say we can't really judge them as much. We have to judge them on competitive games. Spain have been good in the competitive games, and they've also been good in the friendlies. And I think they're building something. They've got a good mixture of youth and experience. I think Spain will take some stopping. And I also like the host Germany. I think bringing Toni Kroos back, Stevie fancies Germany. He thinks Germany are going to do it. He fancies them really strongly. I don't necessarily think they'll win it. I don't know if they've got enough defensively as well. They concede a lot of chances, and their goalkeeper, Manuel Neuer, has made some real high-profile mistakes in the last couple of months. So I don't know if they're fully right at it. I think they might get to a semi, perhaps at best a final. I can't see beyond France or Spain myself, personally. I think France have got the real superstar in Kylian Mbappe that we will all know about now. And they've got probably a depth of talent that could pick from 35 players. So I think France and Spain will be the ones to beat here.
Well, that's probably a good sign for Canada, who a week tonight play Argentina in the Copa America, and they were in France friendly against them last week, and they got a 0-0 draw. It's a friendly. I'm not sure how significant that is in your eyes, but what do you make of the Canadians going into this tournament? And I guess it couldn't start much more difficult than this. They got Messi and the Argentina to kick things off a week tonight.
Yeah, it's a big start for them. That's where they're looking at. Of course, Messi, as you say, we know that how Argentina maybe approach games. It's almost as if the other 9 outfield players just get around Messi and just basically just work like Trojans just to get Messi on the ball and get Messi in comfortable positions in the final third of the field. That's where they are. But I mean, judging Canada on those 2 games, I thought there was enough positive signs even in the 4-0 defeat against Holland. I thought there was enough to suggest that they could actually go on and give Argentina a good game. And then we see the performance against France. And if you watch the last 20, 25 minutes of the France game, you saw a really confident Canadian team. You saw a team that was able to take it to France, create openings, not necessarily create big chances. I think France probably did have the best chances on the day, but it was more on Ismail Kone, the youngster in midfield, and his ability to control the midfield alongside Stefan Eustáquio and Jonathan David up front having a real influence. And even Max Crepeau in goal, just the performance that he put in, it really gave me a lot of confidence watching Canada in that game to say, not necessarily beat Argentina, but there's certainly a chance to get a point from that game that will set them up for the Peru and Chile games.
Well, that would be music to the ears of Canadians and Jesse March, I'm sure, for that matter, the new head coach of the national team. So we got a lot of soccer coming up, a lot of footy coming up on TSN. We're going to see Kevin a lot. We're going to see Luke a lot. We're going to see Stevie a lot. We can't wait for it. Enjoy it starting tomorrow. Enjoy the grind, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. All the best.
You got it. Kevin Kilbane, who knows what it takes to play international football, that's for sure.
How come I just had a famous Irish soccer player on? I'm a Flanagan O'Neill, and the Irish never come up in soccer.
Well, they're not in the tournament.
No, I get that, but it's like never Ireland's soccer power. I thought they'd be dominant.
Jump on the Scottish bandwagon, man. Jump on Scotland.
Dude. No way.
Why not? Scots and
can't they field a squad over there in Ireland? Like, let's get a squad together.
I know. Well, listen, your boy Rory McIlroy, 5 under par in the clubhouse, co-leader. There you go.
Dude,
Rory.
These guys are making some holes look absolutely ridiculous. Like,
It's
the way they drive, like Bryson DeChambeau a few moments ago hit a drive that was 379 yards. Like, it's a 580-yard par 4, and he hit like a driver and a sand wedge. It's just like, what?
It's also crazy, like looking at some of the videos that popped up of this course prior to this tournament, like guys dropping a ball on a green and it just rolling away. And then the rough situation, it's crazy what, if you get hot, what you're able to do at that level.
Don't kid yourself, though. They're going to fight back. They're going to say, okay, you want to shoot 5 under here today? Watch what tomorrow brings, and they will not screw around.
That's the
what are they
history
going to do,
of
dry it out?
Yeah, that's what they have to. I think they will, because I think it was Tiger Woods that said that earlier this week, that you probably are going to see the best scores on Thursday. So I think his prediction was whoever's in the clubhouse with the best score on Thursday, that's the bar. No one's beating that. In other words, 5 under is probably winning the tournament.
Yeah.
Like that's the way they feel. And Pinehurst historically has done that. There have been players under par on the Thursday, and then no one's under par basically the rest of the way.
Right.
Now, I will say this. I'll believe that when I see it because these guys are freaks. Like this course, what do we always hear in modern golf? The course, there's just nothing they can do anymore because of what you just said. These guys are hitting the ball 380 yards.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, Payne Stewart did that. Payne Stewart's hitting 255 in 99.
Right. Topping out at 255.
These guys are hitting the ball 130 yards past that. You know, I'm not sure that the carnage is going to be as extensive as people think.
Not when you put those shorter clubs in those guys' hands.
Yeah.
Like you give them sand wedges, they're going to do damage, man.
Well, look at who's up there. Like Cantlay, he doesn't crush the ball. He hits the ball.
He still
pretty well.
moves it, though.
He does. But McIlroy, Oberg, DeChambeau, Finau, like those guys crush the golf ball.
Yeah.
That's it.
Crush it.
And don't kid
And they're
yourself,
all in the
man.
hunt.
You can't just crush the ball and spray it all over the face. Like you have to be pretty accurate, and those guys are accurate as well. Excuse me.
Absolutely. I just saw Ludwig Oberg. I'm pretty sure he went 14 for 14 hitting fairways today.
Yeah, there you go.
14 for 14. Let me find this.
Deep.
Yes, 14 for 14, and I think he was 16 for 18 greens and reg. Like that's absurd.
It's robotic. That's legitimately a robot.
That's absurd.
That's playing golf like that.
Coverage of the U.S. Open on Overdrive brought to you by Subaru Canada. Do it all this summer in a Subaru with the fully loaded summer event. Visit your local Subaru dealer to book a test drive today. We've got news from the Utah Hockey Club. We'll tell you about the Utah Hockey Club in Game 3 tonight. And Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. We'll get to that next. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Putting my faith back in the Oilers tonight. Minus 137 money line. On Edmonton. I'm on Edmonton to make it a series.
All right.
To win tonight.
What do you think they're going to do to win, Hazy B? Tell the world.
I think they're going to break through on the power play tonight. I think that's going to happen. I think McDavid and Draisaitl come out flying. I think they get on the board within the first 10 minutes. And I think they're going to have to grind out a win like 3-2. I think it's close. I could see overtime tonight. I don't think they're blowing the doors off this team. But I think they're a good enough team. They're a proud enough team. They've had a couple of days. I know they're banged up. But the Oilers, I don't think they're going out with a whimper, man. I don't. I think they're going to win tonight. I hope not, too. But I'm on the Oilers tonight. Best Bets powered by FanDuel. FanDuel's goal in the first 10 minutes is the most electric bet in hockey and can be included in a same-game parlay on any NHL game. Please play responsibly. 19+, physically located in Ontario. So the Utah Hockey Club will be playing in the National Hockey League next year. Utah Hockey Club.
Doesn't make sense. Utah Hockey Club. Why would you want to screw around and have two different names because you're going to change it in a year? You had enough time. You could have done the poll immediately and then said, okay, we're the Mammoth. Here's the jerseys. It's awesome. Now you're going to waste a whole year being the Utah Hockey Club? Look, I don't care what they do. I get it, they're on time, but they could have just done this differently. I don't understand.
Well, also, like the colors, they're fine. Like they're not obscene, they're not repulsive, they're not silly, they're not goofy. But it kind of looks like a beer league type of look,
So why burn the first year with that look? It just doesn't make sense.
I guess they feel they're going to be popular in that market anyway because they've arrived, they're there, people are jacked, and they're buying time. Like, I don't think this is a surprise. Like, they're killing some time here is what they're doing in Utah.
Trying to think, like, if you're calling a game or you're doing the panel for a Utah Hockey Club game, now you're just saying, are you saying Utah Hockey Club or you're just saying Utah? You know how so many times they say the Philadelphia Flyers? Like, we're just saying Utah, I guess.
Now it's just
That's
Utah.
all we're saying. Just
or
Utah.
Hockey Club. Leafs
the Hockey Club zone
tonight down at Scotiabank.
Yeah.
Hockey Club is in town. I can't wait to see it. We got some breaking NFL news here. The Jags and Trevor Lawrence have reached an agreement on a 5-year, $275 million extension, including $200 million guaranteed, $142 million at signing. That means now the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis, this is according to Adam Schefter. Trevor Lawrence now at the top, $55 million. Joe Burrow ties with him, $55 million. Jared Goff, $53. Justin Herbert, $52.5. Lamar Jackson, $52. Jalen Hurts, $51. There's one name that is not a part of that list that sticks out. Which name would that be?
Did you say Patrick Mahomes?
I did not. So this guy's going for a three-peat this year, and he's making a lot of money, but he's not one of the 6 highest paid players in the league based on per year basis.
Guess who's going to trump all of it in a couple years?
Patrick Mahomes?
No, the kid in Texas.
Yeah,
Houston.
he might. C.J. Stroud?
Oh, yeah.
He very well could. I mean, Mahomes can and will whenever he wants to, right?
Oh, they'll
he
rip
goes
it
to
up
Kansas
and
City.
just say, we'll give you whatever you
Of course.
want.
But he's gonna do what Brady did all those years and still make a ton of money and endorsement deals, but he's going to move money around and try to keep pieces.
Well,
and
didn't
win
they
ball
already
games.
just do it recently? They
Yeah.
said, no, we got to give you more.
Yeah, they did, because the original deal, they're like, all right, this isn't enough. But yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is obviously a really good quarterback. Hasn't won a thing though, and now
No
he's making
kidding.
$275 million on a 5-year
When your
deal.
time's up, you get paid. That's the way it
right.
works as a
That's
quarterback
right.
in the NFL.
These are all good quarterbacks. Lawrence, Burrow, Goff, Herbert, Jackson, Hurts. They're real. Those are elite quarterbacks.
Danny Dimes?
No Danny
Conversation
yet.
for another day.
Danny's a step below that.
Don't even get
Just
me
a
started.
step.
Hayes thinks
A
he
step
deserves
or two.
45 a year.
A step below. Dak will be a part of this list by this time next year, too, I'll bet. Dak will
No
sneak
way.
into the top 6. All right. Good seeing you, Frankie. Thanks
All
for
right,
doing
boys.
this, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's Frankie Corrado. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out today. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in, TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Go Scotland and go Stevie Caldwell. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.